good evening, and welcome in. How are we doing? Hello 13th, hello Goldie, and hello Zebra. The one and only Savage Zebra. I'm quiet. Hold on. How about now? Wait. How about now? Is that better? I am crazy, or are you muted? Not muted. Definitely not muted. I'm quiet. Let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do. Thanks, bud. Let's see. Output, input, right here. I'm trying to see if I can boost it any way, shape, or form, because right now it's literally as high as it can go. The music is also quiet. Well, yeah. The music is supposed to be quiet, but I could do this. How's that sound? It just means I don't have a pop filter. Oh my god. It's a million times better. Hold on. We're experimenting. How's this? Can you still hear me? I don't want the pop, pop, pop to be in your ears, you know? So you tell me. Pop filter or no pop filter? You like it without? Well, what the zebra wants, the zebra gets. So I've been told. King of pop? Debatable. So, to answer your questions on how am I feeling, the pain is real. I have taken medication later in the day so that I can try and actually get through the stream without too much interference. So, that being said, if you see me shifting around in my chair and wishing life to be over, that's why. It's going to be a long weekend. I am seeing 2 different doctors on Monday. I've got my family doctor in the morning, and then I see urology to figure out what the heck's going on later in the afternoon. The game plan, the hope, the goal is to get my family doctor to basically give me more pain medication, because I will be out, finished, finito, and I will be basically crawling into the doctor's office by Monday morning. So the goal is to have them get me more, and then I can go to urology in the afternoon and see what's going on, see if we need to do anything, see if I just, this too shall pass kind of thing, or if it's more of a, let's get you booked for surgery and do something. So, I don't know. For right now, I'm just trying to do work as best as I can, because I work for a company that takes very good care of me, so I'm doing my best to be, present in the moment and helpful if I can be. So, anyway, my kidney stone was so bad, and I did not know what it was at the time, that I had an ambulance take me to the ER. It was terrible. I wish you easy time of it. Yeah, my wife not long ago had a kidney stone. Like right around the same time that I had my last one, which was only 4 freaking months ago, okay? And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. She wakes me up. She's like, in tears. She's like, I think something's wrong. I gotta go to the hospital. And we thought it was something else. But thankfully it was only the kidney stone, because it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, so she went through it. I've been through it now 8 or 9 times in my entire life. And each time it sucks. Doesn't get any easier. So anyway, enough of that pain and misery. Let's move on to bigger and better things. Let's take a look at Stream Raiders. Alright, so we've got 2 options here. Before we get to the big bad boss, we can go up or we can go down. And it really doesn't matter, because the chests are the same. The only thing that matters is if we go up, there's 1 extra battle before the boss. So I have no preference either way. I guess it kind of depends on how many people show up. So I'm thinking we should go up. That way we can build up our momentum and then work on the boss. That's kind of my thought process. So yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Safer is better in this case. All right, let's see. What are we working with? Yeah, this map is definitely. Let's squish some ickies. Absolutely. Let's do that. We're gonna go down here. So, of course, we need a nice long line of defense, and then after that, we're just gonna go crazy on the artillery. Put a line of melee. Couple of hastes. And, of course, sometimes you have a few extras that you may want to play, so by all means do so. There you go. Simple as that, folks. Just a line of defense and really heavy on the archery. So, keeping it simple. Keeping it simple. And now that we're officially in December, I thought I'd go with a more Christmassy vibe. And you know, that warm, cozy fireplace for all of us that actually deal with cold temperatures from time to time. So, that's the deal. And I'm going to keep looking for other ones, of course, because you know me, I don't seem to stick to anything more than 2 or 3 times. But that's just me. That's just me. Alright, so let me do a quick reading recap of what we went through last time. We only did a couple of chapters last time, 26 and 27. But they had a lot of detail to them, so let me just give you the rundown. So, Sammy went back to her apartment. She had a bunch of groceries, and after she put them away, she basically sat down and read an article that caught her eye. And without going into a ton of detail, she basically freaked out. And she's kind of got 2 options at this point. She can either stay in the apartment in Boston, or as conversations have arisen, she can go to Vermont and basically live out in the middle of nowhere with her family and basically, you know, shelter in place. And she's not really sure. She goes back and forth quite a few times before she finally talks to Angela, and Angela, of course, knows what's going on. She's in the middle of it. She's trying to help save everybody, and she breaks her non-disclosure agreement. She goes completely against the rules, and she just spills for Sammy because she wants to protect her friend. She doesn't understand why she can't, help those that need help. And of course, the reason is to save off a mass panic. But in this one scenario, in this one situation, she sees breaking confidence as a good thing. So she tells Sammy exactly what's going on. And it's funny because Sammy was like, no, you know what? I think I'm going to stay. And Angela's like, no, you don't want to stay. Go. Get out. Get out of Dodge. So she does. Her mom picks her up, and she leaves. And that's kind of where that gets left. Angela basically goes back to her apartment, and she's alone, and it sucks. The other part of what we read about was Matteo, back in 1347. There's been about a week that's gone by since he started getting those rashes, and his condition has done nothing but escalate. It's gotten really bad, to the extreme. Now, Matteo's boss shows up at the house, and he's putting on this face of being mad and like, where's Matteo? Why isn't he working? What's going on? So Matteo's wife explains that his condition is getting really bad, and she shows him Matteo, like, here's the proof, like, we're not lying to you. And then his boss breaks down, and he's like, look, I know I'm coming across as a jerk, but I'm doing it because everybody's like this. I have no one that can work at the dock right now. I'm desperate for people, but everyone's gotten really sick. So, unfortunately, Matteo ends up passing away. He does not recover. A few days after the encounter with his boss, like with his wife and his boss, he ends up passing away. And the unfortunate part about that was the part that really hurts, and this may not hit home as much to you unless you have a kid at home with you, or someone that you know in the family, like a young niece or nephew, something like that. But his wife and son were in the room at the time. Now, I have a 5-year-old, and when I was reading that, I could very easily put myself in that moment, right? Where something bad's happening to me, and my 5-year-old is witnessing it. And that scared the crap out of me internally. Very devastating part of the story. But at the same time, with this plague, it wasn't just Matteo. It was happening to thousands upon thousands upon thousands. So imagine that experience multiplied. And the promises we make to our kids that we cannot keep. Yeah, absolutely. It's devastating. So that it was good to put it in the book because it's a true and realistic experience. But at the same time, for a father or a family member that can relate, it's crushing, it's soul crushing. So anyway, that's essentially what we read last time. So tonight we are beginning our book with chapter 28. We are at the end of July. We're in the Kroger Market in Houston, Texas, and it is the evening time frame. And that's where we're starting off tonight's story. So settle in, get comfy, make sure your drink is nearby, your snack if you want one, and let's get into the book and see what happens. And of course, while I'm reading, if you are curious about the book, there's that link for you to peruse if you want to see more information on the back, for example. Either way, let's get into it. Chapter 28. A sparkle of orange and red blooms across the windshield, and patches of darkness interrupt the brilliant light as shadow figures obstruct the view outside the forward-facing window. The side windows rattle in their frames from the concussive roar raging outside the vehicle. On the outskirts of the parking lot, Alex lets his truck roll to a stop diagonally across a couple of parking spots. In front of him is a suburban war zone. Chaos and panic infect the night before him. The glass of the shattered Kroger windows glitters across the sidewalk and roadway. Patrons flow in and out of the shopping market in competing swarms. As Alex scans the front of the store, he observes a woman climbing out of the broken window with her arms full of groceries. She stumbles to the ground, allowing her treasure to spill out before her. She frantically gathers her loot and runs into the parking lot. Fascinated, Alex tracks her movement into the chaos. Her run slows and ultimately stops as she stands, staring at a burning car. Her head swivels to the left and then to the right. She slowly backs up and then turns on her heels and runs in the opposite direction. Seconds later, she escapes with her arms full of necessities as she crosses out of the parking lot and is swallowed by the darkness. Alex's concentration is interrupted by a sudden thwack as an intertwined pair crashes into his driver's side door. The men appear to be wrestling over an object. Each man repeatedly grabs and pulls at the item. As the swirling mass of arms and legs pivots outside his window, he observes a 4-pack of toilet paper squashed between them. Individuals traverse in every direction before him on their own unique missions. Alex places his vehicle in reverse. While the scene at the Kroger market is shocking, it is hardly unexpected. The Kroger is the third regional grocer Alex has attempted to visit today. The Kroger displayed the most chaos and destruction, but he assumes that many of these looters are on their second or third attempt to get necessities. He wishes he had listened to Sarah and gone to the grocery store first thing in the morning. However, the trucking company was swamped with issues, and Alex felt he had to first get the logistics there settled before he could go grocery shopping. Besides, any perishables would have needed to be brought immediately home, and that would have made him late for work. Several of the employees had been out sick, so he didn't feel he could call in on a personal day. When Sarah arrived home last night, Alex was already asleep on the couch. She had called earlier in the evening to let him know she would be working late to cover for one of the nurses. He attempted to wait up for her, but at midnight, sleep finally overcame him. Sarah arrived home after midnight, and Alex quickly rose from the couch to greet her. Well, I'm wording well today. I think I've got a little bit of stunt mama rubbing off on me. The exhaustion Sarah carried was obvious. Alex doubted that 24 consecutive hours of sleep would make a difference to the bags under her eyes. As he approached her by the front door, she practically collapsed into his arms. Hugging her, he felt her racking sobs. He guided her to the couch and eased her into the cushion. He retreated to the kitchen and retrieved a glass of water. When he returned, he handed her the glass. She tentatively peered into the cup and took a sip. She handed the glass back at him and asked if they had anything stronger. He hustled back into the kitchen and poured half a bottle of white wine from the refrigerator and poured her a glass. Or procured. Wow. Not poured. Hicks, hello. Thank you for that 3-month subscription. 2-month streak. I'm glad you made it in. I wasn't sure if you would, but I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Get comfy. Do what you're doing. Just relax, hang out. I know you've had a long day. Hopefully this will help relax you a little bit. He returned to the living room and sat next to her as he handed her the glass. I have never seen anything like what I experienced today, she stated as she took a huge gulp of her wine. What happened? It was pandemonium. We didn't have anywhere to put all the patients. We converted the waiting room into a makeshift triage center. We doubled up patients in the ER rooms. The hallways were lined with gurneys. Couldn't you move them into the hospital rooms? The hospital's full. The rooms are double and triple occupied. Patients are lining the hallways there as well. The hospital has confiscated some of the private practice space to convert it into patient rooms. We literally have no more room for patients, but they are lined up in the hospital driveway waiting to be served. She lamented as she took another huge gulp of her wine. What are you expected to do? The rumor is that the National Guard is to set up a tent hospital in the parking lot outside the ER to handle the overflow. But at the rate we're getting new patients, it will be overflowing in a matter of days. Besides the respiratory patients, we're getting a flood of people with serious trauma injuries, she said as she polished off her wine and handed the glass back to him. He rose from the couch and headed to the kitchen. As he filled the wine glass, he shouted over his shoulder, Where are people getting the trauma injuries from? A riot broke out at one of the grocery stores in town. One of the news stations ran an article that the food supply chain was experiencing disruption because of employee illnesses. Within minutes, thousands of stay-at-home moms were at the grocery store fighting over boxes of cereal. How are we for food? We are not scheduled to go shopping until next week. I'm not sure there will be any food left next week, she retorted. Can you load up on supplies tomorrow? And get lots of non-perishable foods? Sure. You will have a fully stocked house before you get home tomorrow night, he offered. She finished her second glass of wine and announced that she was going to bed. Secretly, she was hoping that the rapid consumption of alcohol would effectively knock her out. Alex took her wine glass and placed it in the dishwasher. He inspected the cabinets and refrigerator and typed a grocery list into his phone. Now, 18 hours later, Alex pulls his truck out of the Kroger parking lot and wonders where he's going to get the items on his grocery list. At this point, he'll be happy to get anything, whether it's on the list or not. It takes Alex several minutes to maneuver around the people and cars flowing around the parking lot. As he exits the lot, Alex heads west on Belford Avenue. He takes a ride on Will Bend as he unconsciously guides the truck back home. His mind mulls over his options as he continues down the road. He doubts he will have any success visiting another major grocery store. For a moment, he thinks of turning around and getting on the I-610 to go visit the Russian Bear. At the very least, he could get some takeout food for tonight and then try again tomorrow. Happy with his new plan, Alex looks for the next street to turn around. He reads the sign for the approaching street and notices it's Hillcroft Street. He takes a ride onto Hillcroft with a new destination in mind. He drives a couple of miles down Hillcroft and pulls into the parking lot for the Russian General Store. Alex parks his car in a spot near the entrance. The parking lot is only partially full, and there is a clear lack of chaos surrounding the building. Alex feels the euphoria of a truly inspired idea. He exits its car and enters the store, hoping he will find the inside intact. When Alex enters the establishment, he notices that it is fuller than he has ever seen it. However, the Russian General Store is practically empty every time he has visited it. For the past 30 years, AJ Trucking has been providing food delivery service to the Russian General Store. Alex is often at the Russian General Store early in the morning when he is covering for an employee and completing a food delivery with one of the AJ Trucking vehicles. Love the fireplace in the background, relaxing. Yep, that's what I was going for. I'm glad you like it. On those mornings, he enters the side door directly into the establishment storage room. The other time he is at the store is when he visits just before it closes, after work and a stop at the Russian Bear, to pick up any missing necessities Sarah desires. Today, Alex will not be able to get everything on his grocery list, but he is happy that he will be able to get anything. As he crosses the threshold and the door closes behind him, he feels instantly transported to another reality. The air inside the Russian General Store has a level of humidity usually filtered by the persistent presence of air conditioning throughout Houston. The thickness of the air presses in on Alex, and his nostrils fill with the smell of unfamiliar, pungent foods. The space is brimming with chatter, but dominated by Russian or thickly accented English. After pausing for a moment by the door to gather his senses, Alex picks up a basket and starts his pursuing in the far left aisle. The first aisle contains shelves of canned and jar food. Usually, the shelves are fully stocked. However, Alex notices that sporadic bald spots populate the shelves, as entire sections appear to be missing. He walks slowly forward as he carefully inspects the available offerings. Luckily, he knows enough Russian to decipher the meaning of the Cyrillic lettering that identifies the can's contents. He picks up the first can from the shelf and spins it to see the word Tushonka. Goldie, do you care to, translate for us? Tushonka. He adds a dozen cans of the it's stew. If I just read on, I would know it was stew. He adds a dozen cans of the stew to his basket. He moves a bit farther down the pathway and spots 4 remaining cans of something that's actually written in Russian. Good job. There's a word here that's not in English, so I have no idea. Can't even guess. Like French, I could guess. Spanish, I could guess. Russian, I can stare at it blankly. So he grabs 4 cans of something. He knows he has a fresh loaf of bread at home, and he should be able to spread the contents of the something over the bread to create an open-faced pate sandwich. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but the last time I had a pate sandwich, I was really young, and nope. I'll just eat the bread by itself, thank you. By the time he reaches the end of the aisle, he has added an additional dozen cans of various foods. He enters the next row and picks up several blue cans of something else in Russian. I have no idea. I love it. He will use it as a creamer substitute for his tea. Okay, so whatever this Russian thing is, it's a creamer substitute for tea. Yeah, I can't even try. If I remember later, I'll come back and take pictures and post them in Discord. He will use it as okay. With excitement and disappointment, Alex gathers up the last jar of Varenya. At the end of the aisle, he adds 2 12-packs of kvass to wash it all down. See, these words I can guess at because they're written in English. I looked at the food and its packaging for the book. You did good. By this time, his basket is completely full. He approaches the register and sees the owner at the counter. "Alexander, tell me you are here with the delivery," exclaims the owner. "Did your access code not work?" "Sorry, Boris. I'm just a shopper this evening. I had trouble at the Kroger down the road." "I heard. Some people are panicked over there. I have never been so happy to be a small, out-of-the-way store," Boris states. "Be really glad that you don't have the word grocery or supermarket in your name. If you did, they would already be here," suggests Alex. "I have some more things to get. Can I leave this basket here?" "Sure. From what you saw, should I be worried about the store?" "It was a really ugly scene. I would close up shop for the night and pull down the metal gate over the door. I would cover the windows and hang a sign that indicates that you're out of stock. If you're lucky, the store will be spared," recommends Alex. "That bad, huh?" wonders Boris as he runs his fingers through his beard. "I guess it's not surprising. The news says that the U.S. death toll is climbing and 5,000 people dying a day. That's my Russian for you. It's gotten really bad. Sarah practically lives at the hospital these days. She told me last night they don't have anywhere to put the new patients." He leaves Boris to his preparations and grabs another basket to gather more food. He skips the center aisle, which is filled with stacking dolls, fake Fabergé eggs, Russian books, clothing, and toys. Alex moves to the small deli area in the back of the store. In the deli glass case, there are different varieties of smoked fish. To the right of the fish, there is a wide selection of sausages and salamis from around the globe. The Russian general store imports the meat from Jerusalem, Moscow, Budapest, Warsaw, and Berlin. Alex fills his second basket with the various fish and meats. He returns to the register and places his second basket next to the first. He rummages in his pocket and retrieves his wallet. As he looks down at his wallet, he notices the shelves below the register are filled with myriad different bags of candies. He instantly recognizes the packaging of the Russian candies Sarah sent in care packages to Iraq. He scoops up several bags and adds them to his basket. I would do the same. No shame here. I love candy. He pays for all the goods and wishes Boris luck. He steps out into the heat of the night and loads the groceries into the trunk of his car. The collection is not exactly what Sarah was hoping for, but over the years, Alex has introduced her to Russian cuisine. And at the end of the day, food is food. Alex backs out of his spot and decides to backtrack to the I-610. He figures he will get some takeout from the Russian Bear for tonight and save the groceries for later in the week. In a few minutes, Alex finds himself passing the Kroger. Surprisingly, the scene is even more destructive than when he left it an hour earlier. The parking lot is bathed in red and blue flashing lights from a fleet of police cars and fire trucks. Glass, mangled shopping carts and damaged groceries litter the parking lot. The firefighters are busy putting out 2 different car fires. Along with the sidewalk in front of the market, the police have half a dozen looters cuffed and ready for transport. Alex studies the scene intently and marvels at how much the grocery store in his hometown looks like a war zone. He suddenly jumps as his ringing phone startles him. He fumbles to press the hands-free button on the steering wheel. "Hello, Alex Volk speaking," he answers. "Hello, Mr. Volk. This is Sandra from Dr. Burke's office. I was calling to inform you that you missed your appointment with Dr. Burke this afternoon," she states. "Oh, shit, I'm so sorry. I got caught up with some personal stuff," Alex explains. "We can reschedule the appointment, or if you are free now, Dr. Burke had an evening cancellation," she mentions. "Now would be great," responds Alex. He figures he will be charged whether he speaks to Dr. Burke or not, so he might as well have his session. "Excellent. Please hold." Alex listens to the waiting music as he guides the car to the highway entrance. The music suddenly ends, and Alex hears Dr. Burke on the phone. "Good evening, Alex. I'm glad that we're able to connect," the doctor begins. "I know that these telehealth phone sessions are not ideal, but in these difficult times, it is safer than the in-person option." "Agreed. I don't want you or your staff ending up as one of my wife's patients." "I appreciate that. How is your wife doing?" She's exhausted. She's practically living at the hospital." Oddly, basically predicting telehealth calls is one of the items that surprises even me. Yeah, good call, Goldie. Good call indeed. "And how are you coping with that?" "I worry about her. Sick and dying people surround her, and SARS doesn't care that she's a nurse trying to help people. Several of her fellow nurses have fallen sick. As a result, she is constantly working double shifts." "Well, I pray for her safety, as we do each session. Please tell me about your experiences over the past week and how you have been sleeping," the doctor says. "It was a typical week. Sarah worked several double shifts, so I decided to take some evening shifts driving the trucks to cover for some of our sick drivers." "Are you driving tonight?" "I'm in my car right now, but I'm just on my way home from the market." "Good. So I have your undivided attention." "Well, to be honest, I'm a bit distracted," Alex begins. He spends the next few minutes explaining his attempt this evening to get groceries. He describes in details the scene at the Kroger. "I've been trying to pay attention to the signs that my anxiety is being triggered. I feel like a heavy weight is pressing down on my chest, and I'm beginning to sweat profusely. I can feel the tension in the air, like something truly terrible is about to happen," Alex states as he attempts to take a deep breath. "Okay, let's apply our cognitive behavior training. First, let's start working on our breathing. Take some deep breaths in through the nose and then slowly blow them out through your mouth." Alex attempts to follow the directions, but each breath is shallower than it should be. "Continue to breathe. I want you to think about your car project. What did you do on the Mustang this week?" "I worked on the engine this week. I replaced the filter and the spark plugs," Alex relays between breaths. "Was that difficult?" "No, it was pretty routine. I followed some YouTube videos to learn how to do it." "What do you have to do next on the Mustang?" "A new muffler is coming in next week. That should also be pretty easy to replace," Alex says after a deep breath. "Are you going to be able to fix the car completely on your own?" "No. I found a person to repair the interior leather and a body shop to give it a paint job, but that will be the last step." "Tell me how you feel when you work on the car. What do you get out of working on refurbishing the Mustang?" The Mustang is a manageable puzzle. When I got it, there wasn't a single working part. It was a mess. But I could envision what it was supposed to look like. How the engine should hum and how the gloss of the paint should shine. Each time I work on the car, I move it one step closer toward that ideal. Through my effort, I fix her and solve my mysteries. When I'm done, I'll have a completed puzzle where all the pieces are in just the right spots. It seems this project gives you some purpose. Yeah, I guess. When I work on the car, all that enters my brain is the car. There's no room for anything else. It is the perfect distraction. Excellent. How are you feeling? Alex takes a moment and realizes that the pressure on his chest has dissipated and that his breathing is slow but steady. Better. Yeah, better. Can you tell me what you think triggered your anxiety attack? I'm not sure. Alex, I need you to think and make a connection to your trigger items. I guess I'm just overwhelmed with the stress of worrying about Sarah getting sick. Alex. And making sure the trucking company meets its obligations with so many drivers out. Alex, stop. This has nothing to do with the SARS virus. This has to do with the same trigger related to all your previous attacks. This has to do with the scene at the Kroger. It is imagery that links your time in Iraq with the scene of your parents' death. When you explained the Kroger, you told me how it looked like a battlefield and war zone. You stated the burning cars were firebombed, how anyone in those cars surely would be dead. The fiery scene of your parents' accident and the visualization of their burned-out vehicle have triggered your memories related to your own event in Iraq. Those events are unresolved for you. You suppressed any conscious thought related to the events, but for 10 years, your subconscious has been fixating on that occurrence. What you need to do is confront and analyze why 10 years later, the attack on your convoy still haunts you. It is not your fault. You were attacked. You were admirably fulfilling your duty. You have to confront your trauma directly to move past it. Alright, normally I wouldn't pause dialogue, but I'm going to pause at the top of the next page so that we can quickly, hopefully, defeat Stream Raiders, and then get another one going while I continue. We're almost at the end of the chapter. Alright, what do we got going? Mainly archers, that's kind of what I figured. High ground it is. 8 allies, good luck. Good luck. So in an interview I did about the book, I realized that Alex's work on the Mustang was a stand-in for me writing this book, and allowing me to process the sudden loss of my sight. Yeah, Goldie, that makes a lot of sense. I can imagine that being true. Hopefully you found some way to cope at the same time. I didn't realize we'd have allies over here. The beast folk. That helped. Or wait, no, those aren't allies. What am I talking about? Just kidding. You didn't realize it until that interview. Interesting. Well, hopefully subconsciously then, it helped. Good job, folks. Good job. Alright. Just collect these, get them out of the way. And let's move on to our mystery. Everyone loves a good mystery. Alright. What do we got here? Yep, I'm gonna go with armor. We're gonna need a little bit of everything on this one, I think. Go with armor right there. Some arches. Some melee. And we'll just do a little bit of that. Actually, if you want to place a few tanks up there as a distraction, you certainly can. Alright, easy plans. Easy plans. And there's a wild Minior in chat. Do I have that? No, I don't. So I will throw a ball. Okay. Alright, so we're at the top of page 288. And Alex is about to speak next. Every soldier has suffered trauma. True. And it affects each soldier differently. Well, I doubt that deep breathing and rebuilding cars is going to help me deal with my trauma. Alex retorts, angrily. Those techniques are to assist you in isolating your anxiety so that you can objectively confront the trauma. Your issue is that you fail to take the next step. Tonight's anxiety event could not be a more classic manifestation with an obvious correlation, and yet you do mental gymnastics to avoid making the connections. I don't want to make the connections. I don't want to think about my fellow soldiers and friends dying. I don't want to think how I failed them. You are not responsible for the attack. Of course I am. Alex screams into the phone. Hobbs and JJ died because I wasn't paying attention. I had my eye toward home and not on the mission. What is it that you think you should have done or could have done? I could have been more alert. After the attack, I should have been the one organizing the men and keeping them safe. Instead, I was hopeless, helpless, on the ground. You were injured. You couldn't be expected to... Bullshit. I was a staff sergeant. I was the leader of my unit. I was the one they looked up to. During my first year as a soldier in Iraq, a squad in my platoon was involved in an IED attack. That staff sergeant rallied the unit and set up a defense under heavy fire. He gave his life, saving the rest of his squad. God, I envy him. Even though he lost some men, he knows that he gave his life rescuing the rest. And when it was my turn, I couldn't do the same for the men who looked up to me. I failed to lead them. I failed to save them. Now tell me how this involves your parents. Dr. Burke pushes. I failed them too. I was never the son my father wanted me to be. Once I knew that, I went out of my way to needle him. My mother constantly asked me to bury the hatchet with him. For her, I should have done it. I should have been the bigger man. But she died knowing I never did that for her, and he died having never accepted me. Fuck. I disappoint and let down everyone around me. To be honest, I cannot believe that Sarah's even still with me. I failed her as a husband. If I was only the shell of the man that she knew when I returned from Iraq, after my parents' death, I'm unrecognizable. Alex stops talking and weeps. He wipes the tears from his eyes and notices that he is parked in front of the Russian Bear. During the therapy session, he drove to the bar on autopilot. Good, Alex. What do you mean, good? Alex responds, defeated. You have reached the core of your anxiety. It is this sense of failing the ones you love. Your trigger is events that remind you of these perceived failures. Now we can work on addressing how you rectify those feelings. And how the hell do I do that? We are going to implement step 9 of AA's 12-step process. And what is that? It is the step of forgiveness. We will work on starting the process of making amends. We will find ways to forgive others, such as your father, or the Iraqis who attacked your unit. We will work on seeking forgiveness from those you feel you have wronged. And finally, we will work on you forgiving yourself. Alex sobs uncontrollably and responds, Okay. And that is the end of chapter 28. I tried to, as quietly as possible, still put a bit of passion into Alex's feelings and emotions in that dialogue, so hopefully I did it justice. If not, too late. It's already over. An epic champion tank. Thank you. Goldie says kudos. Alright. You know, I could feel Alex in his car, like, going through that moment. Hicks says it's heartbreaking what he is mentally going through. Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. I remember back when I was in basic training, we were having I was in the 319 squadron at this point, which is the broken squadron, because everyone was either healing or being discharged one way or another. But we were in this big meeting, and the head of the 319 was a captain, and he spilled a little bit of information about his time serving a few years before, and he was a helicopter, or is at that time was a helicopter pilot, and he talked about some of the men that he didn't go into a lot of detail, of course, because we were all trainees at the time, but he talked about some of the soldiers that he had lost while he was serving overseas, and you could just see in his eyes and on his face the immediate, just gut-wrenching trauma and flashback that brought him. He did an amazing job of covering it back up, but it was written plain as day all over his face, and it was just for that brief second that I was like, it's real, you know? You talk about it, you read about it, you drill about it, but unless you've experienced it, you just don't know. And that goes true with anything in life, really. It doesn't matter what the traumatic event is. For some people, it's being on the battlefield and being injured yourself or losing others. And then for other people, it could be an accident in a vehicle, or it could be a job loss, or it could be someone in your family close, losing someone in your family. For me, it's the heart stuff, So, everyone has a traumatic thing that's happened to them on one scale or another. So, easy to relate to in the book. So, as I said in an earlier reading when I finished the book, I realized that Alex grew to be my favorite character. Yes, and I'm starting to see why. It didn't make sense to me the last time when you mentioned that, but it is certainly starting to click now, because he is the most relatable, basically, unless you are a nurse working in the ER, you might not be able to relate, you might relate to Sarah. But for the average Joe, Alex is relatable. Okay. So on that note, I gotta get one of those, like, massive massage chairs that, like, you normally put $1 in at the mall or something. I don't think I'd read books, though, if I were in that. I think this would be a napping stream. Alright. We are about to move into chapter 29. Hope you guys are doing good. I hope you're enjoying the story. Please share some love with Goldie if you are. We are on page 291. It's hard to believe that we've read 290 pages so far. It's kind of crazy, actually. How am I feeling now? Pain? Well, the pain meds are keeping everything at bay. This isn't the most comfortable position to be in, but I am surviving, so thank you. Goldie loves reviews on Amazon. Yes, don't we all? And I will leave one, Goldie, after I'm done with this. I will certainly leave one. Since I actually bought the book, I'll make sure to give a review. 1 star all the way. No, I'm just kidding. Depends how the book ends, okay? Alright. For chapter 29, we are at the beginning of August in 2020. We are back in the Needle Labs in Boston, and it is early morning. So, probably getting their cup of joe. Or their mocha latte frappe with extra frappe. I don't know. I don't drink all that stuff. I have no idea. Alright. Here we go. A blaring alarm pulsates through Angela's head. The sound seems to reverberate throughout her skull, and she pulls her hand up to her ears. She presses down hard, trying to create a barrier that will block the sound. However, grating sound waves of the alarm seem to penetrate directly through her hands. Angela spins around, trying to find the source of the alarm. There has to be some way to turn the alarm off. She stumbles through the doorway into a dimly lit hallway. Red lights line the hallway and slowly rotate as they cast blood-red beams throughout the corridor. A young man in a white lab coat runs towards her. She calls out to him as he approaches, asking what is going on. The man runs directly past Angela, refusing to address her panicked questions. She turns in the direction the lab technician ran from. She shuffles down the hallway, constantly raising her hands up to cover her ears. With each agonizing step, the alarm sound gets louder and louder. She wonders what she's doing. Shouldn't I be moving away from the sirens? She thinks. Almost lost the book. But her feet continue to propel her forward. At the end of the corridor, she sees the door to Strong Laboratories. She is drawn to reach the opening. She feels as if a rope is tied around her waist, dragging her forward. She looks over her shoulder, wanting to retreat and move away from the lights and noise, but she continues to move closer and closer to the door. With the sirens pounding through her head, she finally reaches the lab doors. She reaches out her hand and pushes the door open. She seems to glide across the threshold into the labs. Her eyes open wide as she takes in the scene before her. Bodies lay face down across the floor. Pools of blood seem to surround the bodies. However, Angela cannot tell who lies before her. Okay, I'm sorry, what? Did someone just get stabbed or something? I was not expecting this. She takes a step forward to reach the body closest to her. With each step, the siren noise gets louder. She goes down. Well, yeah, I'm not going to stop. I will keep going. So thanks for the stream, guys. We're done. She takes a step forward to reach the body closest to her. With each step, the siren noise gets louder. She goes down on one knee and reaches out to turn the person over. Before she completes the task, someone crying out her name startles her. She jumps up and turns towards the sound of her name, impossibly heard over the sound of the siren. Oh wait, I bet this has got to be a dream, right? Angela? Why? Why did you let them take me? Comes an anguished cry. Stumbling toward her is her former colleague, Erica. Her glasses are missing and her clothing is torn and shredded. Her shorter-length hair is tangled and unkempt. Her skin is covered in red pustules that ooze a creamy liquid. Erica staggers towards Angela as she continues calling her name over and over, asking why she abandoned her. With each step forward Erica takes, Angela takes a step back. After a dozen steps, she is backed against the laboratory wall. With nowhere to go, Erica is upon her. She grabs Angela's shoulders in a vice grip. Erica lets out an agonizing scream that tapers off into a fit of coughing. Her coughs grow more intense. Gaining a reprieve from the coughing outburst, she looks directly into Angela's eyes. Her fingernails dig into Angela's shoulders. She barely says, "Why?" in a tone of despair before she coughs. Her mouth opens impossibly wide. Her jaw seems to unhinge from her skull, and volumes of blood shoot out of her mouth into Angela's face. Lovely. Angela feels the infected blood fill her mouth as she lets out a strangled scream. Okay, this is just gross. Just imagining it and it's just disgusting. Okay. Angela's arm flails as she knocks the covers off her body. Okay, thank God. Her arm makes contact with warm flesh. Fearful that Erica is enveloping her, she pushes out to place distance between her and the phantom. Mind not to zombies. Yeah, it's good. The blood part in mouth is just get it together, Atkinson. I'm trying. The body refuses to move and gives out a startled grunt. Hey, what are you doing? Ethan asks as he pins Angela's arm down to the bed. Still half in her dream, she screams, "No! Let me go! No!" I should be on Broadway. Whoa, Angela, what's the matter? He asks with concern. Angela's nightmare begins to fade, and the reality of her situation pushes to the forefront. She lies still for a moment, staring at the ceiling as she tries to piece together where she is. Based on the ceiling and the portion of the walls in her field of vision, she can tell she's in a dorm room at Needle Labs. She remembers she moved here a week ago, after seeing Sammy off. She recollects that she decided to remain in Boston and assist with the research team in determining a vaccine and cure for the SARS outbreak. She slowly turns her head to the right and sees Ethan looking at her with a concerned and perplexed expression. Probably something like, when she arrived a week ago, the couple continued to keep up a professional appearance. They had been dating for weeks, but they were keeping their relationship on a need-to-know basis, and they determined that no one needed to know. During the lockdown, Needle was operating with a skeleton crew. Only teams related to the SARS research and support teams, such as facilities, security, and the IT teams, were allowed on the premises. The flurry of activity did not give Angela time to say goodbye to Hugh, Asher, and Maura. In the days that followed the lockdown, Asher texted her several times a day to check on her and to find out what was happening. For security reasons, Angela wasn't allowed to respond to his inquiries. Why is that so hard to say? Inquiries. I feel like I'm saying a foreign word. Anyway, even with a skeleton crew, there were not many dorm rooms, and scientists had to pair up. Angela was paired with Irina. After moving into Needle full-time, the work became much more intense. First, there was no downtime. The team worked all hours. People retreated to their rooms when exhaustion overwhelmed them. The first night, Angela crashed in the dorm room she shared with Irina. On the fourth day, after working for 18 hours straight, Angela headed to her room to sleep. As she approached the door, she heard moaning. Concerned that Irina was in distress, Angela opened the door to find Irina and Arjan in a compromising position. She quickly apologized and scurried out of the room. She headed back to the labs and asked Ethan if she could sleep in his room, since hers was currently occupied. As a lead scientist, Ethan was not required to share his room with anyone else. Since Irina and Arjan were not concerned about fraternization, Angela did not see a good reason to keep her relationship with Ethan secret. From that point forward, she decided to share a room with Ethan. She moved her things into his room the next day, and Arjan quickly took her space in her old dorm room. She offered her key to the room to Arjan, but with a wink at Irina, he waved Angela off, saying he did not need it. Once everyone was on the lab floor, they were all business, and there was no discussion of the new living arrangements. It's a hush-hush need to know level 4 security clearance, sir, and you only have level 3. I'm sorry. I was having a nightmare, explains Angela. Good, says Ethan. Noticing the scowl on Angela's face, he continues. Well, not good. I just mean I thought you were hurt or something. He reaches out and pulls Angela into a warm embrace. He holds her for several minutes until he feels her trembling subside and her heart rate slow. What time is it? Wonders Angela. It is morning. Time for us to get back to it. The results of our theory should be coming in from the other labs this morning. The pair rises from the bed and begins getting ready for the day. The dorm room is small, but it does have an in-suite bathroom. As the couple maneuvers around each other, Angela marvels at the effortlessness of their movements. She can hardly believe she is willing to change into her work clothes in front of a male counterpart. After they are dressed, they simultaneously approach the bed and make it. That's so nice, couples working together. You just don't see that very often these days. They exit the room, leaving it in an orderly condition, leaving no trace of their morning routine or evening activities. As they leave the room, Angela stops to lock the door. What are you doing? Asks Ethan quizzically. Locking the door? Angela declares flatly. Why? Who is going to rob us here? He says with a laugh. No one, I guess. It's just a habit. If I don't lock it, I'll be anxious all day. Well, in that case, you better lock it, Ethan says with a smile. Angela fumbles with her key. She inserts the brass key and turns, but the lock refuses to move. She tries again, and it does not move. "What's wrong?" questions Ethan. "The key won't turn," she answers. "Do you have the right key?" he asks. "Of course I do. What other key would I—" Angela halts in mid-sentence. Her cheeks flush as she realizes she, in fact, is inserting the wrong key. The number 112 is clearly stamped on the key, but she is no longer staying in dorm room 112. Ethan has the room closest to the lab, and on a plaque to the right of the door, it clearly says room 101. With an apology, she switches keys and properly locks the door. I'm accidentally pushing stuff on my keyboard. Okay, there we go. By the time Angela and Ethan reach the lab, the other scientists are already hard at work. To Angela's relief, none of her coworkers seem to care that she arrives with Ethan. The team is reviewing the test results from the other labs working on the SARS outbreak. Strong Laboratories has been tasked with developing a SARS vaccine by creating a protein inhibitor. The SARS virus latches on to a particular protein to gain entrance into the host. Strong Labs is to use their research on how the Black Plague was able to damage the protein receptor for the HIV virus. The question is whether the Black Plague could be used to damage another protein receptor. In this case, the protein receptor used by the SARS virus. In the weeks since Angela moved into the lab dorms, the SARS outbreak has been traveling around the world rapidly. When Angela and Sammy separated a couple weeks ago, the official reports were the outbreak was just beginning in the United States. However, Angela knew that 100,000 deaths had already occurred in the United States by that point. The government and the military were hiding those cases. In fact, Angela was suspicious that when her colleague Erica began asking questions about those results, she was removed from the chessboard. The guilt of asking Erica to get information of the U.S. SARS cases haunts Angela, and unsurprisingly, is infecting her dreams. The outbreak is worse than the general public knows. Angela is glad that Sammy left the city and is settled at her uncle's farm. In the past week, the outbreak has reached every populated continent. Worldwide, the deaths have exponentially risen to more than 4 million. Almost 120,000 deaths have officially been reported in the United States, but Angela knows that deaths have been happening in the United States for months. She cringes to think what the true domestic death count has reached. For now, the majority of the cases and deaths are in Asia. Countries such as Japan that turned to early isolation are now seeing a significant increase in SARS patients. The disease has finally and fully infiltrated all corners of society. To mitigate further spread, international travel has virtually halted. The global economy has grounded to a stop as global imports and exports cease. In the last 2 weeks, the U.S. stock market has lost 40% of its value as the global death toll rises. Governors in the most heavily impacted states declared a state of emergency, encouraging non-essential workers to stay home and avoid crowds. Across the country, grocery stores have been emptied as hoarders stock up on essentials and hunker down at home. In the South, a majority of school districts have suspended the fall semester for public health reasons. Conservative websites and blogs have distributed false health information and conspiracies for political gain. Disgracefully, their posts instruct people to avoid Asian food in Asian-populated areas. One popular social media personality posted videos of Asian people eating bats and other exotic food, with captions warning the viewers not to get infected by the Asian culture. A host of dehumanizing and derogatory memes have gone viral. This blatant racism has gotten so bad that over the weekend, violence broke out in several Chinatown neighborhoods across the country. In Boston, a dozen Chinese storefronts and restaurants were burned to the ground. Masked rioters claimed they were cleansing the city of the disease. In Los Angeles, Asian motorists were dragged from their cars and beaten in the streets. The excessive violence led to 6 fatalities. Angela fears that the world outside is beginning to slip into anarchy. And for a personal intersection, that kind of stuff did essentially happen, and it's absolutely disgusting. I'm sorry I'll have to go for the night. I'll go and catch up. This book is awesome. No worries, Hicks. Thank you for hanging out while you could, and for your continued support. Thank you. I hope you have an amazing night. Get some rest, and we'll see you next time. During a freshman history course, Angela's professor discussed the fall of various empires throughout history. Each empire encountered a chain of events that led to its ultimate collapse. For any society to fall, it requires several systems to dissolve. The teacher explained that the society experiences 1. Financial collapse, 2. Commercial collapse, 3. Political collapse, 4. Social collapse, 5. Technological collapse, and 6. Cultural collapse. Throughout history, empires start down their death spiral path with some financial collapse. Often, this comes from an overextension in their empire expansion. The stretching and depletion of resources to cover a broad empire taxes the coffers of the ruler. In some cases, natural disaster or an extended drought kick off the beginning of the spiral. Ultimately, in financial collapse, the citizens lose faith that business will continue as usual. This uncertainty causes a hoarding of assets, which drives financial institutions to become insolvent. Once funding through financial institutions becomes disrupted, all business operations begins to grind to a halt. As accessible money becomes scarce, commercial ventures are unable to fund operations. Production of goods is disrupted, and labor forces are downsized. Existing goods, commodities, and resources are hoarded, causing the retail supply chain to break down. Ultimately, the price of all goods skyrockets, leading to hyperinflation. As the strain on citizens rises, they turn to their elected leaders for guidance and blame. As the crisis persists, the faith in the legitimacy and relevance of the political establishment is lost. Blue Wave, hello. How you doing? Welcome in. We're doing some stream raiders, and we're on page 298 of the printed text. At this point, society is on the brink of total collapse. Society is created on a set of rules that all citizens agree to follow. Without this base set of laws, the society will fail to efficiently operate. Angela's professor explained this concept by talking about driving. Explained that as all citizens driving their vehicles, they follow a set of basic rules. A red octagonal sign requires drivers to stop. Traffic lights instruct drivers when to stop, slow, or go, and the lines on the road direct drivers what side of the road they are to drive on and when it's safe to pass. At a truly base level, the roads themselves point drivers to where it is acceptable to drive their vehicles. In a societal collapse, the participants ignore the rules of society. The good of the whole is outweighed by the good of the individual. Once the rules of the society become optional, the participants have less of a reason and a diminished framework to work together to advance the society. The lack of coordination halts the advancement of the society and leads to a technological collapse. By the time the technological collapse arrives, the society is doomed to fail. The final stage is the cultural collapse. With the absence of leadership, a focus on the individual rather than the collective, and dissolution of cooperation and coordination, the society loses its cultural relevance. There no longer is a group to be a part of. Faith in the goodness and kindness of humanity is lost, and the societal traits of generosity, consideration, affection, honesty, hospitality, compassion, and charity are either lost or deprioritized. The signs of collapse seem to be swirling around Angela. In China, they have reached political collapse. The populace has lost all faith in the government's ability to contain this disease and protect the citizens. The key draw of a communist government is for the citizens to be provided for and protected. The SARS outbreak has shown the citizens that the government is unable to do either. However, the signs are not limited to China. The crash of the stock market and the halting of the exchange of international goods are placing a huge strain on the financial and commercial arenas in the United States. As the number of SARS cases rise, the citizens are increasing their criticism of the administration. The outward racism shows that a spark of flame has started in both the societal and cultural avenues. As each day passes, the world moves one step closer to the cliff. Good, you just got home? Well, fantastic. Hope you can relax. This is why the work at Strong Laboratories is so important. Billions of people have already been exposed to this disease. Current estimates are that the outbreak could ultimately kill 200 million people worldwide. If the team is unable to vaccinate those people yet to be exposed, the final death toll could reach 700 million. During the weeks that Ethan's team has studied the SARS virus, they have determined that the most promising course of action is to disrupt the virus's ability to enter a host subject. Their thought is to bootstrap the findings of the HIV immunity related to the descendants of the plague outbreak. Ethan started the team tracing the path of the plague's infection through a host of defenses. Ultimately, the team decided it would be best to focus on the virus's fusion processes to a host cell. The team starts this morning going over the same issues that have plagued them over the past week. Let's see. Yeah, this must be Ethan talking. Yersinia pestis is the most effective and deadly pathogen known to man. What makes it so deadly and efficient is its multiple methods of attack. Each of its attacks is violent and damaging. Let's examine each function individually to determine how it works and what it impacts. Oh, this is Arjun. Suggests Arjun. Yersinia pestis has a type 3 secretion system that delivers YAP protein substrates to establish a successful injection. These 6 substrates delivered into host inhibit pathogocytosis, words, science, and block pro-inflammatory signals. Basically, these are the toxins that alter the function and purposes of the immune system. I suggest that we focus on the parts of the infectious process that alter the known operation of the cells. While these toxins are altering these specific cells, maybe they are having an ancillary impact on unrelated proteins. I'm really glad I'm not on some scientific team that is going to save the world, because that entire paragraph just went right over my head. Okay, good. How's Stream Raiders, by the way? Did I hear it go off? I did. Let me pause real quick. Since I just, read something that means absolutely nothing to me. Alright, we got a lot of tanks, so I think we'll use Killing Field. We don't get to use that one too much. The trick is, where will that be? I think we'll meet right about there. Alright. It's basically me, 13th, and Savage, so here's hoping. Look at those big heart. Who has the heart? That's cool. Oh, I was close. We're right on the edge. Got a few archers in the back doing their thing. These guys are just standing there. This is not... Get... Attack. Go. Kill. I'm very confused right now. This is not how I envisioned. The tanks were just kind of like hanging out. Just doing nothing. It's all of a sudden now that they started moving. But, hey. Good job. Well, yeah, I guess you're both getting gold, so good job. 50 each. Well done. Alright. We're not going to do the boss tonight. We have time, but we just don't have the people. So, I'm going to, save us all so that we can fight another day. Basically. Alright. Unless you guys really want to do it and try it, you just let me know. But for now, I think it's better to live to fight another day. That's my view. Alright. We're about halfway down the page here. Karen counters. We need to focus on the point of the virus fusion. The first step of every infectious cycle of enveloped viruses is the interaction with cellular receptors and subsequent fusion with the cell membrane. These transmembrane protein receptors bind to viruses outside the cell and subsequently transmit the virus's signal through a sequence of molecular switches. The internal signaling causes a cellular response. Why risk the engagement of plague toxins directly? Let's focus on ways to disrupt fusion. True, but we haven't gotten anywhere, Dave retorts. Irina interjects. Based on the European HIV research, we know that it's possible to mutate protein receptors to prevent the virus's ability to latch on and enter a host cell. Causing a mutation is a unique miracle. Mutations arise due to the chemical instability of purine and pyrimidine, I don't know how to say that, bases and errors during DNA replication. For this to occur, an organism needs to be exposed to certain environmental factors, such as ultraviolet light and chemical carcinogens. If the CCR5 mutation was caused by the Black Plague, it must be related to the series of toxins it uses to attack a host. Those toxins could have caused a mutation that was then replicated in the survivor. Oh, this is Dave. Okay. We know that the CCR5 protein has been mutated. That has nothing to do with the ACE2 protein that SARS uses to enter the body, Dave angrily counters. We sit here in our little thought bubble and pretend that people right outside our door aren't dying. With no treatment, we can expect to lose up to 20% of the population. The young and healthy who are infected can expect a death rate of 10%, while the old and sickly have a death rate of more than 45%. Are you ready to accept those numbers? Dave, what bright ideas do you have? Retorts Arjun. As she sits and listens to the team argue, Angela wonders if they are headed down the wrong path. The team's experience with the defective CCR5 receptor related to the HIV virus made this particular approach seem most attractive. HIV and SARS have several similarities in the mechanisms in which the two viruses induce fusion between their virus membrane and their host cell membrane. Thus, adapting the successful anti-fusion therapeutic approach used against HIV-1 to the SARS case could provide the best outcome. Sure, yeah, absolutely. No idea what she just said. Or what she's thinking, I mean. The team knows that the introduction of the Black Plague was the catalyst to disrupt fusion process in individuals exposed to HIV. What they didn't know was how that occurred. David starts clapping his hands and then throws them up in the air in frustration. I don't have an idea. I just know these ideas are dead ends. We've been looking at these options for weeks, and we are no closer to a solution. We don't know which toxin may have mutated CCR5, nor do we know that toxin even managed to impact an unrelated protein. We are nowhere. Maybe David is correct. Maybe we can approach this from another angle, suggests Angela. Angela remembers her Biology 101 class, where they discuss the human immune system. The body has many ways of recognizing invaders. For example, the body recognizes chemical structures that are made by bacteria as a foreign entity. These chemical structures include the special carbohydrates and lipids that surround bacteria. Bacteria place these specific chemicals at the beginning of all their proteins. When the body detects these special chemical structures, it activates its immune defenses. These processes include increased movement of white blood cells to the place where the invader has entered the body and the development of T and B cells. When the body identifies a foreign intruder, it manufactures T cells as a future identification system. The B and T cells' DNA are recorded to interact with the intruder. B cell antibodies bind to the invading particle, such as bacterium, in the form in which it enters the body. T cells do not bind to the invader directly. Instead, they bind to peptide fragments made from the invader's proteins. These fragments are created inside other cells. For example, viruses must invade host cells to increase in number. Once there, they produce their own proteins and copy of their genes. Once this occurs, the T cell recognizes the infected cell and attacks it. Based on this basic understanding, I laugh because if that's the basic understanding, I am screwed. Although I am on some pain medication, so I'll just use that as my excuse. Based on this basic understanding, Angela begins to verbally brainstorm. What if we alter the makeup of the Yersinia pestis offense to focus on SARS-infected cells? We use the plague as a supplemental immune system. Particularly, we use the cell-killing toxins employed by Yersinia pestis to attack SARS-infected cells rather than the host's immune cells. Therefore, we don't just create a vaccine for those not yet exposed, but we create a cure for the millions already infected. Angela relays with excitement. Jesus, Ethan, where did you get this girl? says Dave, gesturing toward Angela. This is not some fantasy world. Why don't we all pull out our magic wands and just cure all diseases while we're at it? Cancer. Poof. Cured. Dave mockingly states as he swoops his arm as if casting a spell. In all honesty, why is she even here besides being your evening entertainment? Wow, Dave's a bit feisty. I think he's just jealous because he doesn't have a roommate. Angela's face turns crimson with the implication. Her hands begin to shake in fury. She's neither a slut nor a whore, and Dave basically declared her as one in front of the entire group. She abruptly rises from her chair with the intention of telling Dave off, but Ethan interrupts her. While she does not need his protection, she is relieved that he will shut down that type of behavior. David, that is unnecessary. We are brainstorming here, and all ideas are good ideas. Furthermore, Angela's and my relationship has no bearing on this discussion. Let's get back on topic, Ethan states. Angela turns toward Ethan with her mouth agape. She is still for several beats as she takes in his response to the situation. He didn't defend her. Not really. He supported her idea, but neglected to protect her honor. His lack of response basically confirmed Dave's assessment of Angela. Yeah, well done, Ethan. Good job. Unbelievable. That's all you have to say? Angela fumes, throwing down her pen and slamming her chair into the conference table. As she storms out of the lab, she turns back and says, "You are a real asshole." However, she's not sure if she's directing the comment at Ethan or Dave. Or, in my own words, both. Her first impulse is to leave Needle and return to her apartment. Her initial steps headed left out of the lab toward the lobby of the complex. However, Angela soon remembers that Needle is on full lockdown. She quickly pivots and heads for the room she shares with Ethan. As she walks, she visualizes packing her belongings and heading back to her original dorm with Irina. Arjan will just have to return to his first room. Her angry footsteps ring throughout the empty hallway as she approaches the dormitory wing. As Angela walks from the lab to her room, she has time to play the scene over in her head twice. By the time she passes through the security doors to the dormitory wing, her temper is flaring. She abruptly stops at door 101 and thrusts her hand into her pocket and pulls out her keyring. She forcefully jams the key into the lock and turns. The door lock refuses to yield to Angela's efforts. With a source of strength born from her anger, Angela twists the key in her lock as she curses at the door to open. Angela is startled by a sudden crack as the stem of the key breaks off in the lock of the door. Yep, wrong key again. She'll never learn, I tell you. She stumbles to her left as the sudden release of the counter-pressure propels her forward. She stands still for a moment, trying to regain her physical and emotional balance. She cannot believe what just occurred. Angela still has the round end of the door key. She holds up the key in front of her to see the 112 stamped in the middle of the round metal. "Damn it!" she exclaims to no one. With the adrenaline subsiding, Angela's mind is starting to take in the situation. What is she going to do? The wrong key is broken off in the lock. How is she going to get in her room now? She turns slightly toward the dormitory security doors, contemplating returning to the lab to get Ethan's key. But then she realizes that the room 101 key is also on her keychain. She pulls the keychain out and fumbles until she finds the 101 key. Her moment of relief upon finding the correct key is quickly dashed as she attempts to use the key on the door. The wrong stem is still broken off and lodged into the locking mechanism. There is no purchase for Angela to pull the broken key from the lock. Therefore, she cannot get the correct key into the lock to open the door. She stares at the lock in complete disbelief. She runs the whole situation through her mind, searching out a solution to the impossible problem. With a sudden gasp, Angela turns on her heels and sprints out of the dormitory and toward the lab. In her wake, the keychain with the broken end of the 112 key clatters to the floor. Well, what an explosive and yet diabolical ending to the chapter. Oh boy. That could have been satisfactory for her, going into the room, collecting her stuff, writing a love note to say screw you, but now she's stuck, and she's probably gonna need Ethan's help. Womp. Sorry for all the science words. It's totally okay. It fits the story well. I didn't do well in science, in school. That was not my best subject. And I certainly didn't study any, pathogens or diseases or DNA structures or anything like that. So, what are you gonna do? Alright. I think we have time for one more chapter. Is everybody still with me? Still going strong? Enjoying the story? Eating some good snacks? Hopefully. Hopefully all the above. Okay. Before I do that, though, I wanted to try out one of my sound alerts.
Wow, I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't.
You like that one? I don't get to use it very often, so. Alright. The next chapter isn't too long. It's only 8-ish pages, 8 or 9 pages, something like that. So, let's do it. And then we'll wrap up for the night. We'll go raid somebody. And then we'll continue on Sunday. But, of course, Saturday, for all you subbed people, Ready Player One, sitting right here on my desk. We're only on chapter 12. So if you've been following with the videos that I've been posting in the sub chat, fantastic. If you want to join us for the live reading in Discord, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, same as tonight when we started almost 2 hours ago. We will be in Discord, and it'll be a good time. So it's a fun book. It's a completely different pace, which is nice because it gives us, a different flavor, different variety. So do join us for that. Also, check out the other readers down below in the About section. There's a whole bunch of USG readers. You can also get their direct links by typing in exclamation and then all of the names, or all of the shortened names that I just typed down below. Feel free to do that if you want. My Discord, if you don't have enough Discords and you want one more, that's right there. Feel free to come in, say hello. I blew away with the party. Okay. Oh, and of course, one more link for this book, specifically to help our author in chat out, Goldie, feel free to check that book out. I hope you're enjoying it. I know I am. It's got a lot of good details in here. Our storylines are coming close on reality, that's for sure. So it's kind of eerie in that regard. Okay. Let's do our last chapter here, and then we'll raid out for the evening. Chapter 30 is mid-August of 2020. We're in Richmond, Texas, and it is evening time frame. And for some reason, my music stopped, so I started it again. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Page 305 in the printed text, if you're looking to follow along with the book. Alex slumps over the wheel of the truck as he slowly rolls forward to the next set of homes. He places the truck in park and leaves the engine on, rolling down the window and peeking his head out to examine the scene. One of the military jeeps pulls up alongside Alex's window. Like a delayed shadow, the driver of the jeep places the vehicle in park with the engine running. Two soldiers vault out of the back seats of the jeep and move toward the back of the truck. Suddenly, behind Alex, he hears a muffled murmur as Simon and Pedro converse with the soldiers. The murmurs cease, and moments later, Alex glimpses the soldiers carrying boxes from the back of the truck toward the set of houses across the street. In unison, a pair of soldiers removes boxes from the refrigerator truck idling directly behind Alex. Each soldier riding shotgun in the pair of jeeps exits his vehicle and begins a swift counterclockwise patrol around the set of grocery trucks. Over the course of the last week, this routine has been repeated hundreds of times each day. Driving the truck all day is not particularly difficult, but the boredom is unrelenting. Even more so, considering Alex is not allowed to leave the cab unless given specific permission from the soldiers. The group of soldiers that accompanies the drivers on their deliveries reminds Alex of his squad in Iraq. Each morning when they gather at AJ Trucking, the 8 soldiers laugh and joke with each other. They swap stories and call each other by their nicknames. But when the vehicles start to roll, a sense of focus and efficiency wafts across the squad. Each soldier's eyes become intently alert, and communication is accomplished with a minimum amount of words. The soldiers operate as they would on a battlefield in foreign country, and based on recent events, that is not surprising. Excuse me. Alright, just had to clear my throat there a bit. When Alex went shopping 2 weeks ago, that was just the start of the pandemonium. Within 24 hours, every grocer, convenience store, restaurant chain, and farm stand was looted. The panic of that first night started a cyclone of activity that quickly spun out of control. The anxiety stirred by the reports of disruption to the United States food chain caused neighbors to turn on neighbors for a loaf of bread and a package of toilet paper. When Sarah returned from work that night, she was unimpressed with the random collection of Russian cuisine and the styrofoam packages of Russian Bear takeout that Sergei had cobbled together for Alex. However, when she heard his tale and watched the news, she was thankful for the haul. By the weekend, people began rioting in the streets, demanding the government provide assistance. Local and state police countered with riot control tactics. The television showed endless videos of citizens clashing with the police. The police liberally used force and tear gas to disperse crowds as soon as they began to form. However, the riots and the subsequent put-downs did not address the fact that the families were quickly running out of food. By Wednesday night, a week after Alex attempted to get groceries, the President of the United States indicated that the government would take control of the distribution of food to the population. He set a national curfew of 10 p.m. He made it clear that any individuals found looting or destroying property would be dealt with harshly. He also froze the price of all goods and services across the United States. Anyone found to be price gouging would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. By that Friday, Alex received a call at the office of AJ Trucking from a general in military logistics. The military quickly determined that they did not have enough vehicles and personnel to handle the president's decree in the time frame they were allotted. Therefore, they were deputizing truck companies and their employees to assist in completing the food delivery mission. AJ Trucking was one of the first trucking companies in the Houston area that was contacted. The military particularly needed a fleet of refrigerated trucks, and AJ Trucking had the most refrigerated trucks in that region. The military logistics team determined that each convoy should consist of a dry goods truck, a refrigerator truck, 2 military jeeps, and a squad of 8 soldiers. Each truck would have 1 driver and 2 handlers who would unload the truck's contents to the soldiers. 2 soldiers from each truck would deliver 1 box of dry goods and 1 box of refrigerator goods to each household. Each household was given a specific day every 2 weeks that was their delivery day. The household needed to have a person present to receive the boxes of food. Each pair of boxes consisted of 2 weeks of food for a family of 4. On the first day of deliveries, Alex asked the soldiers why they did not set up a large distribution center to hand out the food to the masses. The soldiers explained that the concentration of the food in one central location would ultimately end in a conflict if the citizens became desperate enough. In addition, the approved method would force the citizenry to remain in their homes to ensure they received their ration allotment. Once deliveries began, the convoy allots 2 minutes per household to deliver. In a given day, they deliver 2 weeks' worth of food to more than 300 households. In a town such as Richmond, Texas, where Alex currently sits idle, it takes about 12 days to supply every household. Rosenberg, to the south, takes 2 convoys, the same amount of time to supply the town. A city such as Sugar Land takes a convoy of 8 to service the citizens. The AJ Trucking fleet runs 2 10-hour shifts per day. The shifts have staggered start times, which allows each truck to be loaded up from the tandem trailers in the trucking yard. The 4 soldiers and 3 employees transfer the goods from the tandem trailers and stack them in the delivery trucks. As soon as the delivery trucks are loaded, the convoy starts its shift. Usually, the full AJ Trucking fleet is not engaged at one time. This mission required all the trucks to be deployed and the addition of a second delivery shift. After the call with the military on Friday, Alex spent the next 3 days calling everyone he could think of with a Class D license. By the time the operation started, he had not found enough drivers, and he was taking shifts to fill the gap. He decided to fill in on the Richmond route because it was a smaller town, which meant they usually finished their daily deliveries in about 8 hours. As soon as they returned to the depot, Alex would head to his office to address any issues he could not handle on the phone inside the truck cab. Alex pulls the truck forward 100 yards and then places the vehicle in park with the engine running. The Jeep pulls up next to him, and the soldiers set into motion. Samson circles the vehicles, and within a few minutes, is standing outside of Alex's window. Alex rolls down his window and is instantly assaulted by the heat of the Texas afternoon. "How you holding up out there?" Alex asks the soldier. "It's oppressive out here. I wish I was sitting in the air conditioning like you are," Samson replies. Step up on the runner and poke your head in," offers Alex. Samson shoulders his gun and steps up on the runner board and leans his head into the truck. He drapes his arm into the cab and feels the cold air blow directly onto his sweaty forearms. Samson turns his arm over so the air can blow into the undersides of his arm. Alex notices a large Pegasus tattooed on the soldier's forearm. The mythical creature, with its wings spread, trots towards the soldier's palm. The form of the Pegasus is a rustic red color with the details etched in black. "I love your tattoo," compliments Alex. "A buddy of mine got that tattoo while in the Navy." "Oh, cool." The soldier follows Alex's gaze to his arm. He tilts his arm back and forth as he is observing it for the first time and thanks him. "If I had been sober when I got it, I think I would have made it a bit smaller," admits Samson. "Several guys from my squad got the exact same tattoo that night." "That's really striking," states Alex. "What is the significance of the tattoo?" My buddy, Theo, was really pushing for it. He convinced the rest of us to get it that night. It was only later that I learned it was the logo for the gasoline company his father worked for. He just thought it was a cool image. But it has taken on its own meaning at this point. It signifies our support and brotherhood. "Makes sense," responds Alex. "You have any tattoos?" "Yeah, I have a wolf on my bicep," he states as he rolls up his short sleeve to reveal the tattoo. A brown wolf is inked into his skin. The animal's back is arched as it howls at the sky. Following the wolf's skyward gaze, a gray moon hovers before him. Which team's mascot is that?" Samson asks with a chuckle. "No mascot." "Well, what does it mean?" questions Samson. "It is a symbolism of family. I got it early this year after my parents passed away. It is to remind me of my heritage." "Okay. Just taking a wild guess here, Goldie. Could Alex by chance be one of many, or one of a few perhaps, in a long line connected to I suddenly forgot his name. Jeez. Hold on. I'm completely blanking right now. Mateo. Could he by chance be related to Mateo in some weird way? Just curious. Just checking. Silence, he says. Okay. Silence speaks volumes, my friend. "I'm sorry for your loss," states Samson as a moment of silence consumes the cab. "How does a wolf represent your heritage?" "It has been a symbol of my family for generations. My last name, Volk, means wolf. With my parents passed, I'm the last of the Volk family line." "No brothers or sisters then?" "Only my brothers in arms." "Oh yeah? What branch?" "I was in the army. Served in the 1st Cavalry Division." "Oh, no shit. See any combat?" "Yeah, I did several tours in Iraq." "I bet that beats the boredom of this assignment," bemoans the soldier. "Nary a dull moment," responds Alex. "Samson, time to roll," shouts the Jeep driver. Samson utters his farewell, jumps down from the truck and slips into the Jeep. The Jeep's engine revs, and a second later, the vehicle sprints forward. Alex rolls up the window and places the truck into gear. He slowly moves the truck forward to the next stop. Toward the next stop. For the next few hours, the rhythm of the deliveries washes over Alex. The lack of phone calls during this time period allows his mind to wander. The image of the Jeeps and soldiers draws his thoughts to his military service. As his memories circle his past, Alex feels the heaviness descend on him. Through his recent telephone sessions with Dr. Burke, Alex realizes he is overwhelmed by a sense of longing and loss. He longs for connections and belonging, but has struggled throughout his life to find his place. His father was cold, distant, and strict, and Alex never formed a bond with him. As a child, he was a foreigner and an immigrant trying to fit in among his peers. He desperately shed his heritage and wrapped himself in the culture of his adopted country. And finally, he found camaraderie in the army. His fellow soldiers played the roles of his brothers, uncles, and father. However, his desire for belonging suffered violent assaults. His conflict with Dima was rooted in emotional violence, a feeling that Alex was not the Russian son Dima desired. After multiple tours with the army, Alex experienced the sudden separation from his brothers, the apex to his loss being his fellow soldiers who met a violent end while on assignment in Iraq. Alex was baptized early in the violent loss. During his first tour, while he slept in his barracks, his fellow soldiers were ambushed and murdered while on patrol. During his second tour, bombardments of his army base left half a dozen soldiers dead and dozens severely injured. To cap the violence, during his final days of his final tour, Alex's lack of focus led to the death of the soldiers under his command. The more Alex attempts to hold on to his need for belonging, the more it is violently ripped from his arms. The deaths of his parents solidified a wrong that Alex can never make right. He never bridged the gap between himself and his father. Honestly, he constantly puts off the attempt at reconciliation, figuring he had time to address it. But with their deaths, he cannot resolve the outstanding score. He now has to work on forgiving himself, as Dr. Burke directed. However, he's not sure if his self-forgiveness will close that particular gaping wound. He has spent the last decade trying to forgive himself for the deaths of his men. Well, that is not really true. He has spent the last decade trying to forget the deaths of his men. And when he does remember them, the memory is clouded by guilt and self-loathing. Alex will never absolve himself of the mistakes he made that day. However, he will work toward forgiving himself for being human and making a mistake. Alex's biggest fear is that if he seeks belonging in Sarah, he will lose her violently like he lost his parents and his soldiers. Through his therapy, he has realized that he has placed a barrier between himself and his spouse. He holds her at arm's length to save her from the fate of those he loves. Alex decides that he will focus his next telehealth session on this particular revelation. Alex knows he couldn't bear losing Sarah, but knows he may be driving her away. He resolves to confront this paradox directly and immediately. He will work through his thoughts with Dr. Burke. Once he has his thoughts organized, he will approach Sarah and let her know that the depth of his love for her and enlighten her to his struggle, fears, and regrets. He refuses to miss the opportunity to make this mistake right. He refuses to miss the opportunity to make this mistake right, like he did with his parents. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 30. A good ending for the night, I think. Instead of questions and worry and concern, we're instead met with resolve and determination by someone that's plagued. Pun intended. But a good night overall. I hope you have enjoyed this reading. I will work on putting a recap in Discord after we've rated out and the stream's over. Some of the book secrets starting to be revealed. Well, I can't wait. Because, you know, if you're looking at the book, for those that want a visual, this is what we've read. And this is all we have left. It's not that much. It won't take us that long. We'll be starting on page 313 when we come back to it on Sunday. And, yeah, I'd say we're about 100-ish pages from the end. So, it's kind of, you know, when we first started, I thought, wow, this is going to take a while. And now I feel like I blinked. And all of a sudden, we're only 100 pages out. So, it's crazy how a good book flies by when you're enjoying it. That's for sure. Alright. So, on that note, let me just bounce over to a different screen. I want to see who is live right now. I don't see anyone reading, but a good guy that also plays Stream Raiders is live right now. He's doing a bonus stream. He wouldn't normally be live, and I never get the chance to raid him, so I think we should. So I'm going to go to our ending screen. I'm going to put the raid up. Join me if you can. If you can't, I understand. I'll be back to reading in Discord on Saturday. And of course, Sunday, 2 p.m. Central Time, we will be back to this book. So, again, thank you. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great night. And if I don't talk to you until next time, just remember, you may not be able to change the world, but you can change the world for someone. Take care. Have a good night.